The rain fell with quiet cruelty that November night, a relentless curtain soaking the city in gloom. Eleanor Rivers sat hunched beneath a stone bench in the city square, hugging her swollen belly. Her knees drawn up close to her chest, each raindrop that struck the ground seemed louder than the last, echoing through the hollow space of her chest where hope had once lived. The coat wrapped round her was threadbare, barely enough to stop the cold wind from crawling under her skin. She tried not to shiver. She tried not to cry. Not again. Her back pressed against the base of a statue she didn't care to read. Her body was sore from too many nights spent on concrete. The bench above her offered little protection, but it was better than nothing. She adjusted her position again, wincing as her lower back screamed in pain. Her baby kicked gently, as if trying to remind her it was still there, still fighting. Eleanor whispered to her unborn child, her voice thin and broken, "I'm sorry. Baby, Mama's doing her best. Just a little longer. A lie." She didn't know how much longer she could. Last, hunger had become dull and constant, like the ache in her legs and the fog in her mind. 3 months ago, everything had been different. She was living in a cozy apartment, working part-time at a bookstore, and engaged to Mark, the man she thought would be the father of her child and the love of her life. She had imagined decorating a nursery, taking gentle walks in the park, watching cheesy baby shows while resting her feet. That dream shattered when she showed him the pregnancy test. She had walked into the kitchen, smiling nervously, holding the stick like it was a gift wrapped in trembling hands. "We're going to have a baby," she had whispered. He hadn't smiled. His jaw clenched. His eyes turned cold and calculating. "You're joking," he said flatly. "I'm not," she replied. "I took 3 tests." And that's when the accusations began. He told her she'd trapped him, that the baby wasn't his, that she was ruining his life. Within an hour, he was tossing her clothes into a suitcase and dragging it to the door. He pushed her out onto the landing, slammed the door, and didn't look back once. She stood there in disbelief, heart racing. No money, no support, and no home. She tried calling her father. He was remarried and living abroad. His wife had always disliked Elena. He answered the call, listened in silence, and finally said, "I'm sorry, sweetie. I just can't help you right now." The line went dead. Her mother had passed 2 years ago. She reached out to friends, but they ghosted her. No one wanted to babysit someone else's tragedy. At first, she found a motel and paid nightly. Then the money ran out. She found a women's shelter, but it was overcrowded and only had space for a few nights. She ate when she could, slept where she could. Her body grew heavier with each passing week, and she became slower, more desperate. Now she was here, alone in a cold square with nothing, at the sound of tires hissing on wet asphalt and a slow, rhythmic ache in her back. The baby shifted again. She gently rubbed her stomach. She whispered, "Please, someone help us." She didn't know someone was already on their way. Across the city, in a sleek penthouse that touched the clouds, Liam Hartford stood staring out the window. The world beneath him glowed in amber and white, the cars like veins pumping through the city's streets. He held a glass of whiskey but hadn't taken a sip. He rarely drank anymore. He rarely slept. The penthouse was silent, almost hauntingly so. His office overlooked the skyline, but he barely noticed it. His thoughts were far away, locked in a moment he couldn't escape. 6 years ago, he had lost his wife, Lily, during childbirth. She had gone into labor early, and the hospital had made a mistake. The baby didn't survive. Neither did Lily. He had arrived minutes too late to hear her final words. Since then, Liam had become a ghost in a suit, He poured himself into work, built a tech empire, gained billions and the admiration of the world, and felt none of it. Tonight, the rain made him restless. He walked into the elevator, passed his doorman with a nod, and stepped into the cold. He got in his car and drove with no destination, no music. Just silence and streetlight reflections in the puddles. He drove past the square and was about to turn onto another avenue when something caught his eye. A figure, small, huddled, beneath a bench. At first, he kept going, but something pulled at him. He turned the car round. Elena didn't hear the car stop. She didn't notice the footsteps. Until a voice spoke, "Miss." She flinched and turned her head. A tall man in a dark coat stood a few feet away, hands up in peace. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. "Are you all right?" Her instincts screamed to run, but her body was too tired to obey. "I'm fine," she croaked, voice dry. "You're shivering," he said. He removed his coat and stepped forward slowly. "Please, just take this." She hesitated. "I don't have anything worth stealing. I don't want anything from you." He said, "You're pregnant and freezing. Let me help." Her body swayed slightly, her eyes cloudy. Finally, she nodded once. He wrapped the coat round her shoulders. "There's a heater in my car," he said. "Will you come with me? Just for tonight. Somewhere warm. Safe." She looked at him, searching his face for lies. But all she saw was quiet sincerity. "Okay," she whispered. The penthouse was like another planet. Warmth wrapped round her like a blanket. The floors were smooth wood, the ceilings high, the walls lined with quiet art. She stood awkwardly by the door, dripping, afraid to touch anything. He returned with towels, a cup of tea, and a soft blanket. "Sit," he said. She obeyed. Her legs shook as she lowered herself onto the couch. "I'm Liam," he added softly. "Elena." He smiled faintly. "Nice to meet you, Elena." He brought her supreme soup, not the cup noodle kind. Chicken and wild rice, steaming, fragrant. She ate slowly at first, then faster, then cried into the bowl when she realized she hadn't felt this full in days. He didn't interrupt. He just sat nearby, watching her with a quiet that wasn't judging. She stayed one night, then two. He gave her space, a guest room with fresh linens, comfortable clothes, food stocked in the kitchen. A basket of prenatal vitamins appeared on the counter. He never asked about the father, never pried. By the fourth day, she began to talk, slowly. Her voice still shook sometimes, but the weight on her chest lightened with each word. She told him about Mark, about being thrown out, about the square, and one night, in the quiet of his balcony, he opened up to. He told her about Lily, about the nursery he'd sealed shut, about the guilt that still haunted him like a shadow. She listened. They didn't need to say much after that. They understood each other. When she was 6 weeks from her due date, he came home one day with paint samples and new baby clothes. She blinked in surprise. "You said the nursery used to be green," he explained, nervous. "Thought you might like to pick a new shade." They spent the weekend cleaning it out, scrubbing the walls, picking colors, hanging mobiles, folding blankets. They laughed. It surprised them both. He drove her to doctor appointments. She helped him remember how to smile. The baby arrived early, during a snowstorm. Her water broke in the kitchen, and she screamed for him. Liam nearly dropped his phone in panic. He helped her into the car, drove like a man possessed, and held her hand through the worst of the pain. At 6:37 a.m., Mira Grace was born. She was small, loud, and perfect, Elena cried the moment she saw her dot, so did Liam. He held her first. "She's incredible," he whispered. Ellen looked up at him with exhausted eyes. "So are you." They didn't rush anything. They didn't need to. 6 months later, they were a quiet family. Imperfect and healing. On warm days, Eleanor walked Mira through the same square she once slept in. Liam met her there after meetings, carrying coffee and homemade cookies. Sometimes they sat on that same bench, now full of memories. One afternoon, she asked, "Why did you stop that night?" He looked at her for a long time and said, "Because something told me I'd never forgive myself if I didn't." She reached over, laced her fingers through his. "Thank you," she whispered. He kissed her hand, his eyes shining. "No, Eleanor, thank you." And as Mira babbled softly between them, her tiny fingers reaching up toward the sky, they knew they had found something neither of them thought they deserved a beginning, a home. A love born not from perfection, but from choosing each other every single day. Forever started right there, where despair once lived, and hope was now cradled in their arms.